Just finished making these window boxes. What's great about them is they're only made out of fence pickets. Cost me about 20 bucks. And what's nice about them is I can always take them off and put them in the greenhouse if the weather turns nasty. So stick around and I'll show you how I did them. So the first thing I did was take it over to my miter saw station, each picket, and cut it to 34 inches. I used my stop block, works great. And you'll need 3 of those, one for the bottom and then the 2 sides. The ends we'll wait and cut after we get an accurate measurement when we put it together. If you know anything about these pickets, you'll know how bad a shape they're in. They're bowed, the edges and faces are pretty rough. But I took mine over to the jointer and jointed one edge and put that edge up to my table saw and cut the other end to 5 inches. I did that because the widths of these boards vary so much from board to board. So I cut them all to exactly 5 inches. I knew what I had. I had thought about throwing it through the planer to get rid of some of the bows, but I didn't want to take anything off of these. They're already thin enough. I set up a rabbiting bit on my router table and I used my measurement blocks to set the depth to 5/16. I then used my fence to set the width of this to match the board. There's not going to be any rabbits on the bottom board, but the 2 sides get a rabbit on one side and then the 2 ends get rabbits. And remember, this can all be done by using butt joints. The reason why I just put the rabbits in there, it just gives me more glue surface. You can always just nail them together just like they are. I would still use glue though. Once the rabbits are in, I put the sides and bottom together, and that way I get an accurate measurement from rabbit to rabbit on the ends, and then went and cut the ends accordingly. So I decided to rip down another board to 1.25 inches, and that's for the trim here. And I tried to get fancy with it and put the trim on with 45-degree miter joint. You don't have to do that. You can do just butt joints if you want. I decided to challenge myself, and I knew it was going to be difficult because these boards aren't in the best shape. I cut one of the 45s, put it on the box, and then marked for where the other 45 went. And I did that all the way around the box, on the top and then on the bottom. I also used some trim screws to strengthen it up a bit. So I glued and brad nailed the trim on as well, and then I cut small spacers to use in the corners and in the middle. I used a 1/2 inch Forstner bit to put holes in the bottom of the box. That will allow the water to drain out. Then I decided to use the same width, 1.25 inches, for the top. I mitered those corners as well. I went ahead and sanded all the trim. I decided to do that just to give it a little more contrast, and I think it looks a lot better than the fence boarding. But you have to be careful if you brad nailed these. You want to make sure your brad nails are countersunk enough to where it doesn't tear up your sanding pad. I actually had just one brad nail out of all those that I had to countersink with my punch, and you can countersink them with a screwdriver or whatever you want. Since these were meant for flowers, I didn't have any qualms on using spar urethane that I put on it. That'll protect it from the weather and UV. And since I didn't put any on the inside, I would feel comfortable using it for veggies as well. You just may want to leave the spar urethane off of the top portion of the trim, but that's a decision that you have to make. I then stapled landscape fabric on the inside of the box, keep the soil in, let the water drain. So I wanted to use French cleats to hang these. You could screw them right into the wall if you wanted to, but I wanted to be able to take it off and put it into the greenhouse if the weather got real nasty. If you don't know how French cleats work, you take a board and you put a 45-degree cut into it. Then you take another board and put a 45-degree cut. And when those two match up, one on the wall and one on your box, it provides a place to hang your box securely. Now, I initially had some real wide French cleats, and I didn't really like the way that looked or hung onto the wall. So I cut them down to smaller strips. This is a 45 here, and it hangs onto the one that I have on my wall. And then this is a spacer or a standoff that can lean right up against the wall, and that provides a little better support in my opinion, but either way will work. Well, thanks for sticking around. Some of the things I would have done differently on this project was probably milled the fence boards a little better. I had a bow on a couple of the ends that really affected the way I could put my miters in. So I wish I would have turned that bow inward or milled that piece down to where the bow was gone. I wish I would have put trim piece on the back, and that would have hidden the cleat and sat flush against the wall. I hope you enjoyed this project. If this has helped you in any way, please like and subscribe.